Today we talk about the best superhero TTRPGs on What is Tabletop.
I wanted to do the Superman theme, but I don't know if we would get copyrighted for it.
No copyright strikes here.
Yeah. At least not yet. Eventually. Here's hoping.
You
Hello and welcome to What is Tabletop, where we do not have any copyright strikes yet. My name is Frank. I am your friendly neighborhood podcaster, and with me is Charles.
I am also a neighborhood podcaster, but I'm not friendly.
Yeah, that's the problem. See, this is why Superman is my favorite, and your favorite is Spider-Man, and you have quips, and you've ruined movies now.
That bothers me 0%.
If you want our opinions on Robert Downey Jr., you should, I guess, I don't know, should we start a movie podcast? I don't care.
You know what? If I wasn't doing tabletop game podcast, tabletop gaming podcast, I would definitely be doing a comic book, just a general nerd themed thing. But
so we like comic books is what we're saying.
yes, I love comic books.
Is your favorite character actually Spider-Man?
It absolutely is.
Oh man, so generic like everybody else.
So, but specifically, I have a specific Spider-Man. The Scarlet Spider, not this new one who's all evil and crap. I don't know where that came from. I didn't like that because, again, I hadn't read comic books in a while, and then I was like, "What happened to him?"
I'm pretty sure Ben O'Reilly is still like, "Oh my angst" in the movie. So, like, is he evil? I think he's misunderstood. Regardless, we won't find out until next year.
It's not Ben O'Reilly. It's just Ben Riley.
That's right. No, I like Ben O'Reilly for this one.
Now we're getting political. The O'Reilly factor.
We're gonna do it live anyway, so it's all good.
Screw it, we'll do it live.
All right, what are we talking about, Charles?
We are talking about the best superhero tabletop role-playing games, which, I'll be honest, I can't give you a whole lot of input on because I haven't played many of them.
I think you've literally played 0 of the ones we're going to talk about today. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, but I will tell you, like, again, as we talk about them, I will do my best to not give my opinion on things that I don't know anything about, but I will talk about, oh, that sounds like a cool idea.
So we're going to talk about RPGs, specifically in the superhero genre. Now, you might be wondering, Frank, there's only 3. We're going to talk about 4 specifically. And no, that does not encapsulate every single one that exists, because we'd be here for far too long. And honestly, we got a city to save. It's night. I have to turn into Batman in about 2 hours, so we got to really speed things along here.
I have children, so my mind went to PJ Masks.
PG Masks?
PJ Masks.
Oh, I still don't know what that is. Is that like Paw Patrol?
Kind of. It's about...
all right, we're going to stop the conversation there. So the first one we're going to talk about...
The parents will know what I'm talking about.
And make sure to like, comment, subscribe, so that way you'll be our favorite superhero.
Indeed.
Anyway, so first one we're going to talk about is the newest Marvel RPG. I have to specify newest because there is so many, and that's
what I've heard.
Right, you're gonna get a lot of very popular IPs having multiple different RPGs based off of them. And the downside to all of that is that the rights for who can print which ones are always going to fluctuate, and because they're always going to fluctuate, that means reprints are harder to get sometimes. Star Wars RPG, but we're going to talk about the newest one for the Marvel. It is a 3d6 dice system. I think it's very similar to Fantasy Age, where you have 3 dice. One of them is a special die. It might even be Fantasy Age. I don't know. One of them is a special die, and you're going to roll, and you just add those together to see if you do a certain thing. The special die is your Marvel die, and if you get a 6 on the Marvel die, it's a spectacular success. And then that just allows you to do additional things. Here's the thing. What's really going to be nice about it is that it's a somewhat light system. It's really designed for if you just want to play the Marvel characters in an RPG. Because it has 100, and then there's additional books. You could get hundreds of Marvel characters already designed for you, already figured out. You'll find, if you find anyone who's playing this, they're not using unique characters. They're most likely using pre-established characters with that.
Again, because of my creative nature, I'd rather create a character and have it live in the world of that. But I could also understand, like, hey, we want to play this game. We don't have time to come up with characters, Let's just make it easy on ourselves. Right. That makes perfect sense. And again, I would still play again, I know for a fact there's the Scarlet Spider's in there, so I would probably play that.
So what's nice is if you want to make your own character, they don't have levels in like a traditional class or level system. Instead, they have levels in the sense of how strong your character is. So level 1 is like your Daredevils, like your street toughs. Level 2 is a little bit higher than that. They maybe have a little bit of magic to them. Level 3, we start to get into more magic, so on and so forth. And you just keep going until you get to level 6, which is the cosmic realm. That's your Silver Surfers, your Galactuses, your Kang the Conquerors, like these insanely superpowered people. And the idea is, instead of leveling up through them, you pick one and you make your character based off of whatever level that is. And then you just play the campaign like that. You can inevitably level up. I don't know if that's necessary.
So I was wondering how, like a Daredevil character going to a cosmic level, how that would look like.
I mean, you can still have Daredevil fight at the cosmic level. He's just not going to pack as much of a wall up as Silver Surfer.
Well, exactly. And that's how it is in the comic book. So I'm actually okay with that.
And I think that's why they do it, is because they want to maintain the consistency between each one. So that way you're not like, why is suddenly Johnny Blaze the same fight level as Moon Knight, even though I could argue that they're this or that.
Well, it sounds like if you're going to play this game, the way you want to do it is like, you probably want to focus on keeping it like, okay, we're going to have a bunch of level 1 street characters. So you're going to want your bosses and stuff to be of that nature.
Right.
Maybe a level 2 if you want to make it a little more challenging, and if you want to expand it beyond that, you're like, okay, this is your level 1 character. This is your level 2 character. This is your level 3 character. I think that could work. Again, this is just me thinking through the process of what you're explaining. That's the only way I can imagine it working beyond that point. I mean, like you said, because I can't imagine Daredevil going up against Galactus. I'm like, what's Daredevil going to do against Galactus?
And I still think there's rules in there that allow it to happen.
I'm sure.
I will say what's nice is they do have like leadership skills that allow you to do things and to buff people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like Captain America isn't just a shield guy. He also has like tactical leadership abilities that allow him to do that. They have powers in specific sets.
Yeah.
And so like when you're making your character, if you choose powers only of one set, you can choose additional powers in that set. So like it really homogenizes. It's really good. The weird thing is you can't really use this system for a like your own homebrew campaign. You could, but there are spider powers. Like there's an entire skill set that is just spider powers. I wonder why.
Because it's the best. Well, again, arguably because of the Spider-Verse stuff type shit, you said this is fairly new. So again, that's definitely why. Because I'm looking in the back of this book right now. In every panel, there's a Spider-Man. There's
I wonder why.
Miguel O'Hara. There's Peter Porker. There's Gwen, Spider-Gwen, and then there's Spider-Man Noir. I'm like, in each of these 4 panels, I'm like, there's Spider-Man in all of them. And it says Into the Multiverse on the back. So I'm like, he's one of their top-selling best superheroes.
No. I get it, and I understand that you would want spiders, like a set of spider powers.
It's very unique too. Also, again, I guess you can call them like animal powers. Even you could probably
because I think animal is a separate thing, unfortunately. So there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a fun one. I think like you, I would treat it more as a one-shot RPG.
Oh, for sure,
and more so like, hey, we all want to play these characters. Let's all pick characters that are level 3. And we're gonna have a fun fight against this villain that's level 3,
or even not just a one shot. You could do like a limited campaign, like we're gonna play this for a month or 2 months. We're gonna have 8 sessions. Session 1 starting off, and then by the last session, you're facing the big bad. Like kind of going like almost creating your own graphic novel out of it, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily do a like pick your favorite comic run, and then how like a alternate version of like what happened in Civil War with Cap and Tony, or stuff like that. So you could easily do that, and I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's not a bad system. I just think it's gonna be an easy one to get a lot of people into RPGs with. Nothing wrong with that. I think it'll be good. Let's now talk about Masks. So Masks is a Powered by the Apocalypse game. Now, here's the thing about Powered by the Apocalypse games is they get very specific. They're really about niches within niches. So, for example, Masks isn't just a superhero game. It's actually about teenagers having to come to grips with all their new powers that they're getting, as well as being superheroes and also normal teenage lives. So, like, there's mechanics specifically around the fact that you don't know how your powers work. Also, high school's hard.
I love that so much. See, and again, as much as I love Spider-Man, hearing that concept is something that intrigues me far more as a storyteller and as a narrative person.
Right. So the big draw is like thematically, you're all going to have very similar things. Powered by the Apocalypse games all have playbooks where instead of picking classes, you're picking like archetypes in a sense. So you could have the person who's the beacon. They don't have superpowers, but that they're trying to prove everybody wrong that way. That they can still be a superhero even though they don't have anything
kind of like
special.
a Batman type character,
right? Yeah, more like a Hawkeye.
Okay, got you.
But then you have like a legacy, which is I am the direct kid, descendant, chosen heir to this thing. Okay. I am the Robin to Batman.
Okay.
Right. And I have, or I am the Superman Junior to Superman, whatever.
I love it.
Would work. But the idea is you are literally going to represent this long lineage of great superheroes. How does that affect you as a teenager? Then there's the mentor one, which is more like Robin and Batman, where you have a specific relationship that influences you like like no one else. Where like they tell you something and you have to be like, I agree with this part of my...
You're basically a sidekick.
Right. And then there's additional things. There's the person who's like always like the anarchist who's always against the rules. There's the tragic hero who's inevitably going to have something bad happen to them. Yeah. Then there's additional ones where there's like the harbinger who comes from the future to say what bad things are going to happen.
Oh, okay.
It got some really cool ideas, but it all ties back into, as a teenager, how do you still grapple with having a teenage life and also having superpowers? So part of what's important is you have to have a secret identity. Mm-hmm. You have to have relationships actually have mechanical things. So someone who has influence over you, which most adults will have influence over most teenagers, if they tell you something, then you have to either accept it or you have to fight against it. And if you fight against it, it changes your stats.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so there's additional things like that. After a certain amount of failures, you actually gain abilities and stuff like that. It's a really cool system. It's really interesting. It's got some good progression. I actually liked the fact that when you fail is actually what allows you to eventually get new things. You can also choose at any point to be like, I'm unleashing my powers. I don't know how they work, but I am going to choose that move and I'm going to do the thing and we'll see what the consequences of my actions are.
Okay.
So I think it's a really cool system if you are fine with that concept, because there are moves in there like Pierce the Mask, where it's specifically about getting to the heart of who a person is. But if you're playing an RPG where like superheroes are well known and like their personality, like they're like they don't have a secret identity, it's not this game's not gonna work as well with that. This is definitely more of a like Young Justice, My Hero Academia.
Yeah, I think that's why what attracted me so much. So you said Young Justice and My Hero Academia. I was like, yeah, that's something I'd play for sure.
Right, and that like we could probably all think of like an insane amount of characters that could fit a bunch.
Oh,
of
for sure.
Things.
I've already got 10 characters of them in my mind. I like the idea of like, especially when you said you by failing, because again, if you think about it, you know, you're struggling with your powers. You know, you're struggling with your identity. You know, again, coming from a person who used to teach. I used to teach middle school, you know, is struggling, you know, and it recognizes it seems more realistic. And again, I like the idea of being creative. I like the idea that I get to create my own character, but, you know, I like knowing that, like, yes, of course, you know, typically when you're a teenager, you still have to, you know, you're somewhere in between adult and kid. So you have to still listen to the adult. And again, if you're going to go against the adults, you're going to have to fight for it. You know, there's going to be a challenge, you know, which I think that's really cool that it changes your stats. I'm like, that's, you know, I would love to do a one shot with that one day just to see what that's like.
What's important to note is this is much more on the rules light side when it comes to the actual powers themselves.
Oh, wow.
So like with Marvel, you have to pick skill sets and like you do all of that. You're just basically picking skills and making a class tree. With Masks, during character creation, you pick your playbook and it's like, here's some recommended powers. And then you just pick one. And they're meant to be vague where it's like telekinetic abilities might be one of the options.
Okay.
And then that could be vague on what that actually means for your character and how you flavor it. And then they'll also leave things open where they're like, pick 2 skills and then make your own. Right. So it's very rules light. It's not a like, oh, how far away are you in order to throw this magic rock? It's just, I want to throw the magic rock. Okay, let's see if you succeed at a cost or fail.
Okay.
And then you go forward with that. So I think that's a nice system because if you go the opposite route of being more crunchy with superhero powers, math has to get involved to like a calculus level.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so speaking of that, it's the one RPG I don't have a physical book of. It's called Mutants and Masterminds.
This is the one that you guys played? Yeah.
So we play, me, Jeffrey, and a few others tried to play it. Nothing wrong with it. I didn't understand it, but it's probably one of the crunchiest games I've ever seen.
Wow.
There are rules for everything. And I don't just mean like small things. So like, for example, when you pick super speed, you have to pick the level of super speed that you have. Then there's a chart for just super speed that says depending on what your size is, what your super speed level is, how fast you can run in a certain amount of time. Yes, there's a chart. And it gets insane with how quickly you can run. Like literally, you have to determine things, which means inherently, you as the GM have to know how far away things are at all times. You have to know if my super speeds character is in Dubai while this fight is happening, he can get a text message. How quickly can he show up to the fight before combat ends or whatever? Like you have to literally do the math on that. And that's where I was like, oh no. So Jeffrey made a character that could create things. And it was, you chose things where you could create it, and then how durable it was, and how many people could fit in it, whether it was invisible or not. And he made like this basically impenetrable like square. And that sucked because it was like, cool. So like you guys just get in the square and you can't be hit. You can't hit outside of the square. So that's at least nice. But like now it's just kind of boring. And they were able to fly everywhere they wanted to, regardless of if everybody had, flying capabilities or not. And so that's like always the downside of crunchy systems is that the people who understand the systems better are going to make much more interesting characters and much more powerful characters than say a Seth who tries to make like a Superman light character who's in the point was going to be that he was going to grow into it. Yeah. But he wasn't as strong at and I mean like he chose super strength and he wasn't as strong as Jeffrey was, who could create anything.
So well, that's the thing too. I feel like when you play a game like that, you need to have a boundary. Like, okay, we're all going to start off as lower tier characters. You cannot just create a character.
So there's 20 levels, I think. Yeah. I am like, oh, we'll start at level 5. There's no way they can make such broken characters at level 5. Even if there was 10 levels, I thought the halfway point there was no way. And they made such Zach Brooks made like a time traveling guy who I was like, oh man, this is gonna be difficult. But again, because Zach Brooks cares more about the role play than he and the min-maxing in some ways, I was gonna actually have it to be where he fights a version of himself that claims to be the future version of himself, and he's evil. And they were going to fight each other only for it to inevitably reveal that it was a past version of himself. And he has lived so long, he forgot that version of himself existed. It's not bad. I'm not going to say it's a bad system. It's just, it's super crunchy.
Yeah. And listening to that, it's like, if you're going to play a game like that, this sounds like a game, this does sound like a campaign game you play from the ground up. Like this is not like, I mean, you could do a one shot, of course, then you could, but I think all characters need to start at the same level type thing. So wait, was Seth's character a level 5 as well? Yes. And Jeffrey's was a level 5, but his level 5 was just stronger.
Yeah, Jeffrey found a really good build and was just able to make it to where like he could make things that were invulnerable.
Yeah,
and because the way it worked is you either determined the size and he was able to min-max it to where he was like, I can create this big of an object that is invulnerable, so we will never get hit. And it was like, great, cool, awesome, great.
I love Jeffrey, but I feel like he doesn't understand comic books because again,
he did. He just wanted to make a cosmic level character that was not meant for the campaign that we were playing.
Yeah. So that's the thing too. I think you need to have. So it sounds like for this game, you need to have specific here are the types of characters you cannot have a character who can't not be hit type stuff. Again, if I want to select a character, like I was a GM, I'm like, I'm sorry, dude, you got to create something else. But again, this was a new game. You guys are just figuring it out. But yeah, I would not have enjoyed that game either. And I love superheroes.
And I think, and again, what's important to note is that even if we started at a lower level, sure, Seth and Brooks got to do that. But now the versions of their characters, right? Like Jeffrey doesn't get to make the character he wanted. Yeah. Because he wanted that kind of a character. And I get it. If everyone has in their mind a character they want to make with the crunchier games, the character I make at first level and the character you make at first level, like your character might not get on board until level 3. My character might be on board at level 1. Yeah. And so it sucks for you. You have to wait 2 levels before anything happens. And so that's always like the downside of those systems.
But I guess you could like narratively figure it out too. Like, and like even work things out. It's like, okay, Jeffrey, if your character's going to be this powerful, maybe have another player have a character to similar strength so they could go on do things together. And then like maybe eventually is when we all, then you have like an Avengers type thing, where everyone meets up.
Right. But again, then the GM has to have characters that match that.
It sucks. But
so I will say, Mutants and Masterminds has a version that's for DC heroes.
I
think using it for that isn't a problem, because they've done all the calculations and stuff, so you will know up front, like, hey man, I brought Nightwing, you bring Wally West the Flash, or not Wally, not even Barry Allen the Flash. It's like, you're gonna be better than my character.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, being able to have that conversation there. But then they also have villains in there too, so you can be like, all right, you're gonna bring the Flash and I don't know, I'm trying to think of another overpowered character.
Superman.
You're gonna bring the Flash and Superman. Cool. I'm gonna bring Doomsday, and now you're gonna have to fight.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's better in that regard. Mutants and Masterminds. And again, I don't think it's a bad system. I think just for me, it with how crazy it can get, I think I would only use it for the DC superhero side.
Because again, like I said, if I had to choose between that and the masks, I think I would choose masks still. At this point. You
brought up you would choose masks more. I think I have found it. I haven't played this game yet, but from what I've seen, it might be the one that would fit a superhero RPG best, and that's Sentinels of the Multiverse. So let me give you some context.
Sure.
I come from board gaming.
Yep.
There was a board game called Sentinels of the Multiverse. It was a card game. You got to pick little characters, and like they were obviously like, this is Superman, this is Batman, this is this person, and you fight and you play against all these things, and it was really always fun to see like the story that could be told from just playing these cards.
Interesting.
So then they made an RPG, and this RPG, I think it has lore for their lore, but you don't need it. And honestly, the system in and of itself is fascinating. So the main way this system works is you create your character in one of the best character creation systems I've seen.
Okay.
You want to see a video on the best character creation systems in RPGs? Let us know. We'll make that one. I already know 3 systems that are going to be in there.
I know 2 of them.
This one, you can choose to roll randomly on a list of things. You can choose to just pick whichever one you want. And this doesn't just include powers. It includes your personality. It includes your backstory, like how you got your powers, what's in like your archetypes.
I love tables. I love rolling tables. There's that you can come up with some of the most fun ideas with that.
And so you get to do all of this stuff. And then you get dice amounts. So very similar to Kids on Bikes, where you have a different die size that can be added to different things. You're doing the same thing here. So like my melee, my close quarter combat might be a D12, but then my laser vision might be a D4. So I'm really good at close quarter combat, but I can, and if I need to, I can roll a D4.
I love that concept.
Right? Now, that's not the only things that are determining what dice you're rolling. So let's say I'm going to use my close quarters combat in this situation. What I'm going to do is choose what move I'm using, close quarters combat. I'm going to look at my health to determine what state I'm in. Am I in green, yellow, or red? And that will also be different depending on each character, what dice size you choose. And that's, again, a choice you get to make. Are you the kind of player who, when things get worse, that's when you do more damage? Or do you do a lot of damage in the beginning because you're super overconfident, and then as things get worse, you do less? Well, because your confidence is depleted. I like that. And then you also choose like the quality of your power, and that also has a die attached to it. So you're rolling 3 different dice, you're adding them all together to determine the things that you do. And then it's a really good system in that regard.
That's fascinating, because like when you look at Dragon Ball Z, those characters, they will, I'm like, especially Goku, he's like, I'm so weak, but like somehow he builds himself up when he's at his weakest. And that's when he goes Super Saiyan and beyond. I'm like, I love that kind of concept, and then I also like the idea of a character who's like really good at the beginning, and then now I've been weakened, so now I can only hit. Now all my hits are going to be not as much.
Yeah, and so what's also cool too is some of your abilities you don't even get activated until you get those other levels. So like if you have full health, you only use your green abilities. But then once you start losing some damage, you might get into yellow, so you can use yellow and green. But then when you get to red and you're only at a few hit points, you can use any of them. And your red abilities are always going to be your like more powerful ones.
Wow.
Right? The idea being that like Superman doesn't start with an insane punch out the gate because he might kill somebody. But like once things are getting dire, once things are getting bad, now he recognizes I have to use this ability even though I don't like to. And so I think it's a really cool system. The character creation is really fun.
Yeah.
The dice, like choosing your dice, I think is a great concept of that. They have a really fun system where they have a minion system that we've talked about before.
Oh, yeah.
Where like if you succeed against them, they are just flat out taken out. And if you don't, they have a die size themselves, and you just lower it by 1 die size until they get to 0. But then you have lieutenants that work a little differently. But what's nice is you're not creating like a character that's just evil. Like they have specific rules for antagonists that make it really easy to run as a GM, which is super nice. I always think like if your antagonists, if your villains, if your monsters are hard to run, it's not going to be a fun system to run. But this one is really fun. Like it's actually pretty good. It makes it to where like actually having like a lieutenant means something, where it's like, this isn't like the big bad. He's not going to do a lot of damage, but like you're mechanically speaking, you're going to know he's tougher than all of these minions.
Right.
So I think that's it's a really good system. I want to delve into it more. Some of the powers seem really cool. Like just being able to like customize it. It's this and that, doing all that stuff is fun. And we talked about this in the last video. It has the major and minor twists, but because it's predetermined based off of character creation, it makes it so much better. And I love the fact that you can fail a task and choose, you know what? No, I will succeed and allow this minor twist or this major twist to happen. I think that is such a interesting idea that you get to choose if that happens or not. I will allow my character to lose themselves a little bit to their powers, right? Because I'm a tragic character who's slowly going to die or something. Right. I will do that so that we can defeat this villain. I think is a really fun thing. It fits into the theme of comic books and superheroes. I just love it.
I can't wait to play pretty much all of these games. I'd be interested in playing in every single game you've listed. I would play all of them because again, I love superheroes. Superheroes have such a huge part of my life. It's what got me into reading. It was what got me into my personality was kickstarted when I started reading. And the first comic book I really read was Spider-Man. So, because I liked him because he was in Everyman.
I will also say last thing about Sentinels, the RPG. If you are a fan of that lore from the board game, they also have pre-made characters in there as well.
Oh, nice.
So if you have to. That's really good. So, I mean, again, ultimately, I think any of these games would be fun to play. I would recommend for any new players, probably go with the Marvel one.
Yeah.
Once you understand that system a little bit, that's good. You can go to Masks. It's rules light. So if you're like rules light games, definitely try it out. Yeah. I think Sentinels of the Multiverse finds a very good middle ground between rules light and crunchiness. But if you're the kind of person who needs that crunch, who needs to know this is actually how fast I can run, this is how much force I can deal with a punch, you got to go with Mutants and Masterminds.
Yeah. So. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and, all that good stuff. And yeah, stay witty.
Oh, we're not going to. Yeah, stay witty. Anyway, I must go.
We're going to edit that out.